Welcome to a divisional round episode of Bear Era. I don't think any of us thought we were going to be saying that, even the most optimistic among us this summer, but it is reality. The Bears have slayed the dragon, killed the greater vampire, whatever you want to call it. It always had to be Green Bay. I know a lot of Chicago fans were worried about that game, but look, it had to be them. It's always them. It's not the same if you don't put that team down in that game. Now, we'll talk at length about the way they did it, but as it sits, your Chicago Bears playing the Rams in the divisional round of the NFC at home in what is going to be a bit of a weather bowl. But Ciaran, kick it off, man. How do you feel with the Bears in the divisional round?
I said this at the end of our show last week. Just make it one more week. Want to do more than just one more recap of the Bears season before everything turns to kind of quiet for us, which is really nice because, as I mentioned last week, I have friends, family members that are fans of teams that currently do not have head coaches, and I'm getting texts every single day of like, who should I go for, blah, blah, and it just feels great. You see guys like LaFleur might not be back. Tomlin probably is not going to be back. I know
Tomlin's gone.
He's gone, but like he's not like gone. They still own his rights, and like Peyton and the Saints. But I feel like that's the situation very similar to Sean Payton, where he might not coach this year, and then suddenly somebody goes and takes him. The Harbaugh situation, how nice it feels not to be dragged into all of that, and instead get to witness your team do one of the most remarkable things that you've ever seen, because you just, again, it's a tale of two halves for this team. Like in the first halves of games, they look like so disjointed and don't really have a cohesive plan on offense or defense. And then it's just like the switch just flips and everything starts working out, where the defense becomes a little bit harder to break down, even though they're not doing anything super special. They're just kind of at the start of the year when they gave up all the points to the Detroit Lions, we were just like, just be steady. Like, just play sound football. And that's all they did in the second half. It's like, it's what we asked early in the season, that like, keep everything in front of you and make your tackles and be aggressive, and that's what happened. And I hate to say it, but, and obviously there was two horrific injuries for the Bears, but one of those injuries may have been a blessing in disguise, where when you had TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds in the middle, they look slow, and suddenly DeMarco Jackson comes in, something we've been saying for a couple of weeks now. Like, it's just like the pace of the defense shifted, and the Packers were not able to adjust, and that's why there's a lot of conversations up in Green Bay right now of what they should do. But again, the amount of credit that has to go to, as we say in terms of the thumbnail for this, the Iceman, like, you gotta tip your hat to him, because the amount of talk around him, and he hasn't cared about any of it. He's just gone through, and in every difficult situation, he's been fantastic. And it feels good to know you have your head coach, that you have your quarterback, and then it's about building around that and really putting together a team that, I said this week, getting into the playoffs was the key for me. Once we knew that this team was legitimately going to win the NFC North, I was like, get into the playoffs. And once they got into the playoffs, it's just like, if you can win a game, it's kind of like house money. When we knew it was the Packers, we were like, we need to win this game, because otherwise you would never hear the end of it. But now you have the bragging rights until whenever you play them again, whether it be September, October, November, December next year. And that is key, because it's been, for too long, you've been kind of the whipping boy, and now you get to be the ones. And I hear Packer fans trying to say that, and even to a point their players, and I think it was Javon Bullard was mentioning it, that the Bears didn't do anything special, blah, blah, blah. But then you can use that on the other side of it, that the Packers were only one play away from getting absolutely swept by the Bears because Caleb made a mistake with an interception at Lambeau. So like, that's the one thing I like about Ben Johnson, because the best teams never know when to quit, and this team doesn't know when to quit until, I think I said it to a couple of my friends in the last day or two, like, to beat this team you kind of need to be up by like 27, 28 points in the fourth quarter, because this team, even if it seems like it's not going to happen, they don't quit. Like, there's teams that can still beat the Bears. Like, the Bears came back to try and beat the Lions in the final week of the season, but then the Lions got the ball back at the end and were able to win. That's kind of how you have to beat the Bears now. You have to hope that you have the ball last, because ultimately, for more times than not, when they have the ball at the end and have a chance to win, they make the plays happen, and they do it. And it's just great to see, because for too long we've sat down watching the playoffs and kind of been jealous of other teams doing what the Bears are currently doing, and now we get to look at it as, this is our team. And I think what people need to remember, this is probably the worst you're going to see in terms of Ben Johnson and Caleb, because we need to remember Caleb's only been 18 games with Ben Johnson. This is a team where there's a lot of deficiencies on defense. If that gets pulled up to being even an average defense next year, and you can add a little bit on your offense, like, it's scary, because like Caleb's still really, really young and he's still learning, but he's putting some of the mistakes he's made in the past into practice. And like, when the moment matters the most, he's making plays, and ultimately playoff games are so close that can will you to victory. And I'd rather have a quarterback that has like 55 to 60% completion percentage if that quarterback at the end of the game is going to win you the football game. Like, I don't care what happens prior to the last drive. If Caleb marches, if he has a terrible game against the Rams, but in the last play of the game he marches the Bears down to score a touchdown to win, I don't care, because ultimately now it's a results-based business, and he's been fantastic. And it just feels so good to be a Bears fan right now, and knowing that against some of the top teams in the league, you have a puncher's chance to win.
Yeah, I think it does. It's a great summary. It does feel good to be a Bears fan right now. And on the subject of Caleb, I was thinking about this in terms of Caleb, but then I started thinking about it in larger terms, in terms of the Bears. And Ben Solak put out a tweet earlier this week that said, originally we failed to calibrate our expectations to his talent, right? We failed to calibrate our belief in what a quarterback should be to what he can do. We all knew he was special. We all knew he had this insane ability, and you saw it all through college, but people kept worrying about how it was applied, not that it was applied. He doesn't play in structure. He can't do this. He hasn't played under center. He hasn't done this. And then he would make those plays. He made them in college, and everybody said, that won't happen when he gets to the pros. Well, Caleb is good enough doing that stuff. And he is, just a little side tangent, I've been working up a theory in my head, and I'm just going to daylight it here, and we'll see. I believe he's the most physically talented quarterback in the league right now. And that's obviously a very divisive statement. Everybody's going to say, oh, this guy's got a bigger arm. And I'm like, I'm not sure that they do, because several times a week, everybody's going to talk about the fourth down conversion, and rightfully so. That is a ridiculous throw. It is an incredibly high degree of difficulty rolling to your left. He doesn't even have a foot on the ground. He threw it jumping, and he laid the ball in perfectly between three defenders down the sideline while being chased. Like, that's a ridiculous throw, but there are 2 or 3 throws a week. Some of them are incompletions where you look at the throw and you're like, what? Nobody else can make that throw. That's a ridiculous throw. Went 25, 30 yards on a line, never went more than like 8 feet off the ground, hit the guy in the hands. He dropped it. It's still a ridiculous throw. So the arm talent is elite. It's among the top 5 in the NFL without question. And it might be top 1 or 2. And that's up with guys like Josh Allen and everybody else that you think has an amazing arm. They're in the conversation. He's also the fastest quarterback in the NFL, like demonstrably, not necessarily the quickest. Guys like Kyler Murray are quicker in short areas, but in terms of speed, we're talking about GPS data from the puck in the pads. Caleb had 5 runs of over 21 miles an hour this year, and all other quarterbacks in the NFL had 6 combined. Like, he is demonstrably the fastest quarterback in the NFL. We've seen his lower half strength in the pocket, which is kind of mythical. The way he can shake off 300-pounders that look like they're just going to drag him to the ground. It's unreal. So in terms, I'm not saying he's the best quarterback, because he's clearly not. He's got a lot of things to work on. But from a physical standpoint, I don't know if there's anybody that matches him. And again, you look at him, he's not that tall. He's very solidly built. I've been really close to him throughout the draft process. He's a pretty average looking football player, but that's until you put the pads on and put him on the field. And then he is anything but average. He's exceptional. And I think our failure to kind of calibrate to that started with Caleb, but it's gone on to the Bears, because you hear the same thing about this team, right? They don't do it the way we want them to do it. Can't you just be normal? Can't you start fast in the first half? Why do you go behind all the time? It's not going to be every day that you can come back from 15, 18, 21 points down, but they keep doing it. They've done it 7 times this year. Like, they keep doing it, even if it's not the way that we would like. And it reminds me of if you're a teacher or a boss or whatever else, and you have that one pupil or employee or whatever, and you're like, hey, I need you to do this thing. And they're like, yeah, I'll get to it. And you're like, no, I need you to start now. It's a big deal, whatever. And they just don't, and they don't, and they don't. And all of a sudden they come through and the work is brilliant, and it kind of chaps you. You're like, couldn't you have just started when I asked you to start and put this up? But that's not the end result. The end result is this beautiful work, which is what Caleb's doing in crunch time. Like you said, I would rather have a quarterback that's going to deliver. You look at a guy like Justin Herbert, who is a great quarterback from a physical standpoint. He's one of those guys in the conversation with Caleb. He runs like a deer. He's got a tremendous arm. He can hit all the throws, but he has really struggled in his 3 playoff games. He's like 2 touchdowns, 7 turnovers, EPA down in the like 30s. He has not risen to the moment. And everybody says, oh, it's all the things around him. Yeah, his offensive line was absolutely grenaded. His pass catching unit is not as good as what the Bears have. His offensive coordinator just got fired. These are very similar arguments to Bears fans. But those were the arguments that we made for other quarterbacks, for Justin Fields, who had moments of brilliance, make no mistake, for Mitch Trubisky, who looked like a giant killer against the Lions and very, very average against everybody else. We would say, oh, if he just had this. Caleb doesn't have all that stuff necessarily. Certainly didn't last year and still made some of those plays. So he's the guy, but it is the farthest thing from traditional. It is outside of our expectations and maybe even our ability to truly comprehend it, because nobody's ever really done it this way. He's done it more times than anybody else in ways that we all just kind of, you can call them cardiac kids if you want to, and he's giving lots of Chicago fans heart palpitations, but he is coming through in the clutch. And at this point, we were talking about this pre-show, I'm not willing to say that they're not going to win any of the games they have in front of them. I'm not going to put money on the fact that they will, because I too still have that voice in the back of my head that says, hey, luck's going to run out at some point, and it well may. But I'm past the point where I'm going to be like, they can't win this game, because, buddy, like, we've seen stacks so high against this team, been like, there's no way they can come back, so many times, and they do every single time. So at this point, kind of done doubting them. I'm not necessarily going to favor them, but you talk about puncher's chance with almost even odds at this point, because they just keep doing it.
Yeah, I was listening to one of the Chicago radio shows when I was, I was out for like a long walk about a day or so ago, and it was on ESPN 1000. Tom Waddle was talking, and they asked him to kind of describe why he thinks the Bears can win against the Rams, and why he thinks that they can move forward, in one word. And the only word he said was because. And I thought that was perfect, because you can't explain it, because the defense has been woeful, but then suddenly they're able to come together and work as a unit in the second half of the game, and it looks a little bit better to keep them in it. And then again, when
that might be the
matters,
understatement of the year, a little bit better.
But when it matters most, the offense makes plays. Because think about it, like if this is even some of the other games, like it's not like the offense did nothing. Like they were getting into the red zone at different points and not converting and making mistakes. Like if you look at it, and if the Bears were a little bit smarter in terms of even some of the play calls, I thought Ben Johnson had a really poor first half. And maybe if they went for a bit more conventional thought process on how you're going to attack with 4th and 1 in the red zone, like the Bears are pushing towards 40 points in a playoff game, in their first playoff game.
Yeah.
And that's with them not playing well for large portions of the first half. Like there was times when the offense were doing nothing. But again, I don't know if it's just this offense and the Bears team are aggressive enough that it wears defenses down. And by the time you get to the second half, when the defense slips just a little bit, the Bears are able to take advantage. Because I hate when people say it's luck or it's fortune. Like you can say it's luck or fortune when it happens like once, twice, 3 times. Yeah. It's happened 7 times. Yeah. Like it's not luck, it's not fortune. This is how they are able to play, and ultimately this is what teams that draft quarterbacks early are always hoping for.
Right.
That you can coach a guy up to have better footwork, better fundamentals, try to improve accuracy. You can't teach the clutch gene. There's only a finite amount of quarterbacks in the National Football League that has it, and Caleb Williams is one of those guys. And ultimately, the further along he gets in the system, and the more comfortable he's in this system, all the other things are going to work out by themselves in terms of him just knowing exactly where the ball has to go at every single moment. You're seeing it. He has way more control of the offense right now, but still, I'd say if he got an honest interview, he would still say that like he feels like he's still has so much more to learn here. Like, just think about where he's going to be in this offense in like year 3, when he really has a good, where basically it becomes second nature of what is being called and what he has to do. When that happens, and then he's able to just at times be Superman when he needs to be, like, it is scary when you can see the potential, because a lot of the offensive weapons are building with him, like Colston Loveland. Even you can talk about Kyle Mononga, Luther, Rome hopefully will get up to speed as well. Like, when you're talking about the veterans are there at the important positions. Like, you've won at running back in terms of DeAndre Swift. You have a bunch of guys on your offensive line, which you need veterans on your offensive line. Like, you don't want just a bunch of young guys down there, because you need guys that are tried and tested in the playoffs, and that's what the Bears have. Like, I went back and watched that game. One of the blocks that Jonah Jackson made, he almost killed the dude. He completely pancaked him, but it looked like, I think it was against Rashawn Gary, and it looked like he was not going to get back up. And yeah, it's exciting, because no matter where this ends, and I think we said this before the playoffs, it may have even been like around the 49ers game, no matter where this ends at this point, it's been a successful season.
Yep.
It could end this weekend, because the Rams, I think if you're like comparing rosters, now there's context that goes into this, but when you look at their offense, when you look at their defense, to a certain point, their defensive line and linebackers are still good. They're a bit weak with injuries in their secondary, but like pound for pound, that's, if you tell me the Rams win the Super Bowl this year, I'd completely believe you, because Puka Nacua is a joke, quite frankly. And then when you have Devontae Adams as like the number 2 option, they utilize their tight ends really, really well, having the two-headed horse in terms of the running back position with Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. Matt Stafford's been playing at an MVP level. You've guys in the defense like Jared Verse. Like, that's a team that's just very, very difficult. And if they are on it, you could still lose even if you play well.
Sure.
You just have to hope that. I know it's like an NFL rule, but the Bears should be counting their lucky stars that it's going to be in excruciatingly cold, and the LA Rams are not able to travel to Chicago until Saturday. Like, the Bears are practicing in this weather all week with no heaters, according to Kevin Byard, and the Rams are practicing in sunshine. Like, I know there's been a lot of Rams fans online this week that are trying to say, well, Matt Stafford came from Detroit. They played last year against Philly in the snow. It's a completely different situation. If you are playing and practicing all week in the sunshine, and then suddenly you come to game day and it's like 7 degrees, I'm sorry. Like, it takes time for you to acclimatize. And while they may play very well, we know a 1 or 2% difference in how you're able to play can be the difference between you winning and losing in the playoffs. And the Bears have to use it to their advantage. And I think that they probably will, to try and get the running game going. And that's where, look, the injury to Ozzy Trapillo is horrific. It sucks because he was doing so well.
Yep.
But for this particular game, where you're probably going to want to lean a little bit on your running game with the cold, it's not the worst thing in the world to have T.O. in there, who likes to maul people every time he gets out there. So, Yeah, look, I think that was the only downer at the end of the Packers game, but also I have to give Ozzy a lot of credit, because he knew time and place. And even though he was probably in so much pain, found a way to get himself off the football field so it could still benefit his team. And that just goes to show how much of a team player he is. I really do hope that it'll be similar to other injuries that we've seen in terms of the ruptured patellar tendon, because that's a really tough injury. Like, you'd almost prefer tearing your ACL over doing that. But you just hope that he's young. He won't have too much stress on his body, that he should be able to come back, but ultimately he's probably not going to get to play until at least halfway through next season.
Yeah.
So the Bears are going to have to come up with some backup plans there. But look, this is why it's kind of beneficial that they've had to play Braxton Jones at different times, or T.O. at different times. They go into this game, and normally when you lose your left tackle going into a new playoff game, everyone's like, oh crap. But we've seen T.O. play well at different periods of time, and look, this could be a game that actually just suits the way they would want to play with the way the weather's going to go. But yeah, I think that was the only downer from last week. Other than that, I don't think anybody that supports the Bears has been down off the high from that game. And like, I'm fairly calm going into this one, because I'm like, I wanted a playoff win, and we got it.
Not just any playoff win.
No, not just anyone, but I'm just like, now it's gravy. I'm like, if you can, like, if they go in and beat the Rams, I think people are then going to kind of lose their minds, because then they're like, oh, we actually have a shot. Like, I think going into the playoffs, people were just like, let's get through the Packers. Let's see what we get. And one of the situations we spoke with that, we were like 30 seconds away from the perfect chance to be playing the Carolina Panthers at home. But ultimately it's the Rams, and they're going to have to decide how they're going to come about this game, because no matter what, even if you play really well, it's going to be tough to win.
For sure. You've got a great coach in Sean McVay on the other sideline, one of the most experienced postseason coaches in the NFL. You've got Matt Stafford, who's got, a tremendous amount of career yards and touchdowns in the postseason, and is a tremendous thrower of the football. But the weather is helping out Chicago here. You can say bear weather if you want to, but Matt Stafford is 1-8 in games with starting temperatures below 30 degrees. Typically, I throw that stat out the window, because I'm like, look, if it's 23 degrees and it's clear and sunny, Like, you can still throw the ball pretty darn well. This is not that, folks. We're talking about 10 degrees, maybe naturally, with possibly down to -6 wind chill, 55% chance of precipitation, up to an inch of snow, winds at minimum 12 to 15, gusting to 22, 25 miles an hour. This is not like any other day on the football field to go out and try and orchestrate a timing-based passing attack. It's going to be rough. Ball's going to be hard. It's tough to catch. The footing means you can't cut the way you want to. I don't care about field heaters or anything else. That field is going to be hard and cold, and the speed is going to be reduced in the passing game. And quite frankly, that favors the Bears, because if you just stack up rushing games, if you take Ben Johnson's rushing game versus Sean McVay's rushing game, which this game well may come down to, I'm going to give the advantage to the Bears. I would have given them even greater advantage if Ozzie was in there. But to your point, silver lining, both Braxton Jones and Theo have played meaningful snaps for this team at left tackle. That's a very rare situation in the NFL where you have 3 guys that have played meaningful snaps. It's a really good thing for the Bears. The step down shouldn't be as big as you talked about. But when you get into it, this is lining up nicely to even the odds out for the Bears as best you can. And like you said, we're not talking about average cold. Everything's going to hurt for everybody, but the Bears are going to be used to it. And that is an advantage for them. And you're looking for any advantage you can get, because the Rams are a very good, very well-coached football team that is playing at a very high level. You're going to need every advantage you can get. So interestingly enough, worst to first, both Chicago and New England, who were the number 2 seeds in their respective conferences this year, after finishing last in their divisions in 2024. Since 1977, teams have hosted a conference championship game. Yes, I realize that would mean Seattle would have to lose, which I don't think is going to happen. But interestingly enough, they can join a list of those 7 teams. And one of those teams is the Rams. The 1999 Rams pulled this off. They were last in their division and then hosted a conference championship game the next year. I want to talk about Colston Loveland for a minute because, oh boy, I don't know about you, but I've been getting texts all week from fans all over the NFL that have nothing to do with the Bears. These are people I've known in football for a long time who are sending me texts like, Colston Loveland looks like a Madden tight end, dude. Like, this is not good rookie. This is not like, hey, you paid off the number 10 pick. This is a very different tenor of message about Colston and his ability and how he's showing up at the end of his rookie season. Notoriously, tight ends are slow to develop in the NFL. They usually really don't kick it off until the second year. Now, we've seen that trend reverse a little bit, starting with guys like Sam Laporta and going on to Brock Bowers. But Colston, 8 receptions, 137 yards, became the first rookie tight end with at least 8 receptions and 100 receiving yards in a playoff game in NFL history. Anytime that line gets attached in NFL history, there's a lot of games played, a lot of players in the NFL, folks. And if you are better than all of them in anything, you're doing something right. So with at least 10 receptions, which would be a lot, especially in the conditions we just talked about, 100 receiving yards Sunday, he can join folks like Nakua and Travis Kelce. Here's the really interesting one. If he gets 4 receptions on Sunday, which I think is completely possible and quite frankly probable given the sort of heater he's on, he can surpass Doug Jolly, who had 11 receptions total in his first 2 games for the Oakland Raiders in 2002, for the second most postseason receptions by a rookie tight end in NFL history, trailing only, this is fun, this is a great Ben connection, Sam Laporta, who had 21 in 2023 with Detroit on that amazing rookie run that I just mentioned. So this one goes back a little bit farther. If he gets 40 receiving yards, which again, at 137 against the Packers,
might do that in one catch.
Absolutely. Loveland can surpass Laporta, who had 176 receiving yards with Detroit. And here's a throwback for all of you that have been watching the NFL for a while. Keith Jackson, who had 142 with Philadelphia for the most postseason receiving yards by a rookie tight end in NFL history. Again, that line at the end, NFL history. Only 2 guys right there. And here's a really fun one because there's only one guy in this category. If he gets 100 yards, which again would be a superhuman effort in those conditions, on Sunday, he can join one Jamar Chase, 2021 with Cincinnati, as the only rookies in NFL history with 100 receiving yards in multiple playoff games. Again, that's ever. That's not recently.
Jeez.
That's not last 10 years. That's ever. If you're talking about rookies with consecutive 100-yard receiving games, it would be Jamar Chase and Colston Loveland if he was able to accomplish that. So Loveland is playing tremendous football. He is getting after it as a blocker. Again, we've talked about it multiple times on this show. He's a really tough kid. Was raised on a ranch, is a rodeo guy. Like this guy knows how to be physical in the run game, and that's catching people's eyes. Like one Greg Olson, who at one time, yes, was a Chicago tight end, who said, "Man, Colston Loveland is a dude." That was the tweet. Greg knows his stuff. He watches his tape and he pays attention. There are former players who do and former players who don't. Greg is one that does. If you've ever seen some of his more in-depth segments on podcasts and whatever else, he is a ball knower of the first degree. This is not homerism. Again, he doesn't hold a lot of love for Chicago in his heart anyways, because of his exit under Mike Martz, one of the worst decisions ever by the Bears offensively. But he can recognize talent on the NFL field when he sees it, and he sees it in Colston, and so do I. Am telling you, I've gotten more texts about Colston this week than I've gotten almost all season about anything, because he is coming on at the right time, and this is a massive development for the Bears, not just in these playoffs, but moving forward. They have a guy like Colston Loveland is the guy that everybody thought Cole Kmet was. Everybody would say, "Oh, Cole's great at this," and he had lots of good receiving games. His blocking was up and down, but it definitely got better. And everybody was like, "No, Cole Kmet's a top NFL tight end." I'm like, that's not what you're looking at, folks. You're looking at a good, solid NFL tight end. You're not talking about a threat. Colston Loveland, very, very clear now what the stratas are. And Colston's on one and Kmet's on another. It's great to have them as a 1-2 punch on the same team. But if you're looking at somebody you can run your offense through at the tight end position, and really just period, I'll take the labels off of it. The passing offense ran through Colston Loveland, and that connection with his quarterback is already there. Like you said, they're going to grow together. That's like the second biggest news for Chicago behind Caleb developing under Ben and having that moment. This is a big deal, and that pick is looking even better than I thought it was going to be, and I thought it was good.
That may be in the top 3 picks of the first round in terms of fit, style, and what he's brought to this team. Like the only other ones off the top of my head I can think of, I think obviously Tet to the Carolina Panthers has been fantastic, and then Kelvin Banks Jr. playing left tackle for the Saints, who, like, when you bring in Tyler Shook halfway through the season, he looks like a stud there. Like, a lot of that is coming down to the protection, and so those are 3 that are off the top of my head. I'm just like, those were fantastic draft picks. And the good thing that the Bears did is that they followed it up with a wide receiver in Luther Burden, that it just seems when he gets the ball in his hands, he's dangerous, and he's the right type of mentality that Ben wants on this team. And the question marks were always like how he would be able to comport himself and be ready for the NFL, and he's taken to coaching. I think it's really helped that it's the Ben Johnson, the hard ass. I think really, really helps some of these guys on offense, and man, you're seeing it now. Like if we're talking about Colston and Luther being major, and even to a certain point in Kyle being major parts of the offense from the beginning of the season, you're probably looking at 3 guys that could have been nominated for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, that wasn't going to happen because they came on late in the year versus for the entire season, but like when you look at Colston, like there's probably only 2 tight ends that you would feel confident picking ahead of him if you were doing like redraft scenarios in terms of Trey McBride and maybe Brock Bowers, but like right behind them is Colston. Like you said, some of the cool stats, I think I was listening to one, I think it was to have multiple receptions and over 140 odd yards. I think there was only 7 guys that had done it in the playoffs. 2 or 7 times it was done in the playoffs. 2 of those times were Rob Gronkowski. That just shows you how good he was. But you've guys like the Zach Miller for Seattle did it one year. You had Kellen Winslow Sr. did it one year. Like, it just goes to show the company that he has from his early career. And again, he's just going to get better. Like, it's it's ridiculous to think of where he could be moving forward. He's going to be a focal point of the offense and how they build this offense out moving forward, because he's more, and we said this like when we did our video right after the draft and trying to analyze this as a whole versus just like reactions, and we said like he's gonna be in your more what Amon-Ra brought to the Detroit Lions in terms of where he's going to be taking up, how important he's going to be for the offense, and he's now proven to be that. And it's really, really cool to see. I guess before we move further on from the Green Bay game, obviously the big talking point, two, which I thought were silly. The handshake with Ben Johnson and LaFleur. Look, the guys don't like each other. It is what it is. I've seen it happen before. But then the video that we all the best part of the week, I like to say, is when we get to see that video and Ben Johnson becoming one of us and basically telling the Packers to stick it where the sun don't shine. And I again don't see how it's a big story in the media, because like it's only out there. I find it's very disingenuous from like former players or former coaches even to make any sort of deal out of it, because if there was a camera pushed in their face when they were in locker rooms afterwards, I bet you they said a lot of worse. So look, my points on this is I just like that we have a coach that hates the Green Bay Packers because it's a rivalry. Like for too long we've been too nice. Like nothing pissed me off worse when I saw Eberflus and LaFleur like sitting at that basketball game with each other. I'm like, no, like you're supposed to hate each other. Like we're getting killed by the Green Bay Packers every time we play them, and you're there just sitting with him being all buddy. You know, that's not how this goes. I like how Ben, like the talking points before he was hired was, could he change the culture? Could he be in front of the room? Because everyone only saw him as an OC, and we see what he's like during the game. He doesn't react to anything. Like they make a big play, nothing. And then once the game is over, he's like one of the guys. And for me, it's just great to see the Bears head coach with a bit of fight, and a bit of like FU to teams he's not supposed to like. And I don't see what the big problem was over it. I think more coaches should do it. Like if the Packers beat the Bears next year in one of the games, they should do the exact same thing, because that's what rivalries are. Like it's like, stop with this. Like I think JJ Watt said it really well. There needs to be less jersey swaps and more like FUs to your opposition team, because like you're there competing with each other. Like after the game is completely over, if you want to go have a beer with someone, I don't care. But like when you're a direct competitor, it's your rival, where, let's be real, the Green Bay Packers players, media, and coaches were talking crap about the Bears all week, and the Bears weren't saying anything. They were just getting on with their week, and they ended up winning the game. So they had every right to say whatever they wanted after the game, because they didn't talk beforehand, but the other team did. And I think sometimes you kind of get what you pay for. And I think Green Bay kind of deserved that. And I just wanted to bring that up because I know it was a big storyline. Everyone's been talking about it, but to me, I think it's gone a bit too far. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of the overall importance. Much hue and cry. And again, there's less teams to talk about right now, so any talking point is going to get some air. This one got a lot of air, but this is the difference between sowing and reaping. And Green Bay, coaches, players, fans, media have been sowing for a long time and loving it, because they've been on top of this rivalry for, 10 years easily. It's been wildly lopsided for the last decade. So rightfully so, like you said, they've been winning the games. They can say what they want. And I go back to, if you weren't outraged as a Green Bay fan when Aaron Rodgers said, "I own you" in Chicago, if you didn't go, "Oh, hey, that's That's not good sportsmanship. You shouldn't do that. If you didn't say that, if you smirked along and smiled and said, yeah, that's right, you don't get to say anything about this, because this is the difference of, hey, I've been kicking sand in somebody's face for a decade. Now, they turned around, threw me down, brought in a big guy and kicked sand in my face. And hey, that's not very cool. I don't like it. You sowing, you reaping. Like if you're having fun doing it, when it gets done to you and you're not on the top of that side of the rivalry, sorry, not the time to cry about it. If you want to, go for it. But at the time, people said, so what do you think of Aaron Rodgers saying I own you? I was like, well, it's facts. Mm-hmm. He does. Like, I don't love it, but what am I going to say? You don't, or you shouldn't? He did, and he does. So he gets to say that. The Bears beat the Packers. And I'll say this. One of the cleanest games between Bears and Packers that I can remember in a long time, and I'm talking about penalties, cheap shots, whatever else. There were more cheap shots in the previous game. The Keyshawn Nixon thing against DJ was outright illegal. He should have been, fined for that, and he probably should have been ejected. That was, you want to talk about defensive receiver just decking somebody across the middle who wasn't even in the play. That's dirty stuff. And he ran his mouth all week. And when he got the chance to, meet the ball carrier on the goal line, he olayed. So what you say and what you do, and that's fine. Like, everybody can kind of put up and shut up right now, but this was a very clean game. I can think of lots of games that the Bears lost. I can think of games the Bears won that were like, ooh, that was a really questionable PI. There's very little of that in this game. There are very few flags overall. I don't think anybody would argue that this was a fairly clean, straight-up game. You can argue that Packers coaches and players made poor decisions and didn't execute well. That's fine. If you're a Green Bay fan, you're saying that right now. I understand that. You could say, oh, this is a game the Packers lost. The Bears didn't win it. They handed it to them. You could say that if you want to, too. But you can't say that the Bears didn't win the game, and you can't say that it wasn't a clean contest. So you could be upset with the outcome. I understand that you are. I've been upset with plenty of outcomes over the past decade. But what you can't do is stand up and cry about it and say, oh, you shouldn't say bad things about us when you beat us, when you talk crap all week and you're very used to winning the football game and you didn't. Like, that's that. So moving on, we're going to go to Mike on the mic. He's going to talk about bear weather this week, and then we're going to get to all your questions and talk a little bit more about the Rams in terms of what the Bears might need to do to beat them in this upcoming game.
Thank you, EJ and Ciaran, and welcome in, Bears fans, to another edition of Mike on the Mic here on a very special edition, a divisional round edition of the Bear Era podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. So, let's talk a little bit about what happened last Saturday night. It had everything, didn't it, Bears fans? It had excitement. It had horror. It had suspense. And at the end, it had a fairy tale ending as our Chicago Bears found a way to come back, scoring 25 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Green Bay Packers and advance to the divisional round with a date against the LA Rams in Chicago. Now, what's really interesting about that Bears-Green Bay game was not only obviously the way the comeback happened, but was the emotional toll on and off the field we saw leading up to kickoff, during the game, and obviously after the final whistle. How much emotion was put into that game, was released after that game. All the pressure you felt, all that tension in the atmosphere. And then we see the advancement going to the divisional round. A up, if you will, in class of opponent with the LA Rams. And yet, it doesn't feel as big. It doesn't feel as scary as that matchup against the Green Bay Packers. While Green Bay felt like a homecoming game, a college football rivalry matchup, this Bears versus Rams matchup in Chicago is as business gets. So Bears Nation is talking about, how do the Bears win this one? What is the X factor? What is the intangible thing that would help the Bears get to the conference championship? We know Puka Nacua can go out for 11 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We know Devontae Adams could do the very same. Matthew Stafford could sling the ball around. But this game isn't in Los Angeles. This game is in Chicago. So I went down a couple little rabbit holes and wanted to see something. The Rams are 2-2 in games 32 degrees or colder under Sean McVay. Matthew Stafford is 3-3 in those conditions during his career. Caleb Williams in his career has already played 5 games under those conditions and is 3-2, 2-1 this season. Now, in case you're wondering, meteorologist here, Mike Mercado, to tell you it will be 17 degrees at kickoff with a real feel of 0 and 20-mile-an-hour wind gust and some snow. Now, I give you this weather report for one reason. I'm not somebody who believes in bear weather. If the Chicago Bears did live in a universe where bear weather affected them so greatly, they would have won a lot more NFC North titles. But where I think it does lead to a path to victory for the Chicago Bears is you take the weather forecast and you take the history of Matthew Stafford in 32-degree or colder games. Same thing with Sean McVay. Oh, and Matthew Stafford throwing more interceptions versus the Bears than any other team Stafford has played. Stafford has played the Bears 22 times, and in those 22 times has thrown 24 interceptions. It's not about the snow or it's so cold or these players are soft or these players love to play sleeveless. No, it's a cold, bitter day in the Midwest. But more importantly, a quarterback in the LA Rams with Matthew Stafford who hurt his hand last week. So in a bitter, cold night in Chicago, if Montez Sweat is able to make contact with Matthew Stafford's thumb, his index finger, and all of a sudden that thing gets a little bit numb, and he tosses a ball to one of his tight ends, to Devontae Adams, to Puka Nacua, and one of the Bears gets in front of it, and is able to turn the game, is able to put points on the board, if by making bear weather tangible, by taking advantage of it and doing what you've done all season, and that's taking the ball over and scoring touchdowns. That'll do it for us on this edition of Mike on the Mic here on the Bear Era Podcast. Please enjoy all the NFC and AFC divisional round matchups. Please enjoy Bears versus Rams. And please take care of yourself and each other. We will see you next time right here on the Bear Era Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Now back to EJ and Ciaran.
Well, I'll tell you one guy that's not affected by the cold or bear weather. It's Mike Mercado. You cannot dampen that enthusiasm for the Bears, and rightfully so. Again, everybody should be enjoying this no matter how it ends up. It is going to be a cold, nasty day to play football. It is going to be outside, and we are going to see the elements come into play, whether it's the kicking game, the passing game, fumbles, you name it. Just injuries in general. If you have ever played sports when it's really cold, and I mean below freezing, and you are outside on a grass field, it hurts. There's just no other way to say it. I just getting tackled hurts, falling down hurts. Like, even if you're not tackled, like, it is a difficult environment to play sports in. They're going to be hyped up. They're going to be ready for it. These playoffs in general have been very intense, as they always are, with contact and hitting. It absolutely ramps up. You can see it. You can feel it. You can hear it. It's going to be a rough and rugged game in cold conditions. And you never know when injuries are going to creep up on either team, because if you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt in this weather. You might not feel it till the next day. Very famously, I dislocated one of my fingers playing football in the snow and had no idea until it started warming up. Then it hurt like crazy, but I played for a couple of hours, so good times. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody. It's not a lot of fun. But moving on, we started off this week with a couple of super chats. Thank you very much. One is a draft question, which seems like almost a whole nother world, but that's for Bears fans. So I am happy to answer it. This one's from James Crizel. What are your thoughts on Dylan Thieneman and Sonny Styles as potential draft targets that aren't D-line? The defense needs speed desperately. Yeah, and we've talked about the need at linebacker. That's where Sonny Styles is going to play. He is more of a hybrid, but the Bears have been able to use those players in the past. I'm not sure if he's going to be a DA type if Dennis Allen sticks around, but in terms of the player that Sonny Styles is, yeah, he's got range, he's got length, he's got speed, he's aggressive, he can attack from the middle. he would be a great addition to the linebacking core. I don't know that the Bears are going to prioritize that position with the pick you're going to need to spend to get a Sonny Styles. But Dylan Thieneman, again, safeties are always funny. This is a safety out of Oregon. Again, guy with range, length, speed. Sounds a lot like Sonny Styles. Actually, he's not that far off from him physically, but he's also really got great instincts. He has been a stopper for the Ducks all year long. And I would love to see the addition of a player like Dylan Thieneman. Again, will they spend a pick high enough? This is probably going to be the second, maybe third safety off the board if I had to guess right now. It's early in the process. Very, very good player, but how often does the third safety go off the board? That would typically be somewhere in the second round, day 2. Possible that the Bears prioritize that depending on the health of their safety rotation and whether or not guys move on. It's possible, but I can imagine the safety from this class coming in. I'd be surprised if it was Dylan, because you're going to need a pretty premium pick. Try and say that 3 times fast to go get him. But both really good players. I would love if they both ended up on the Chicago defense. I don't think they will, just because they're both top 50 to, top 50, I would say, pretty comfortably right now players. And it's tough to prioritize. But again, we've said it now for several weeks. This team needs to invest on defense much more than it needs to invest on offense. A lot of the offense is under contract. Most of it's coming back and it's clicking right now. You can make some additions and some depth, but this defense needs a bunch of help, and that is not the case for the defense right now in terms of being set for next year. I imagine pass rush we'll see a little bit earlier than linebacker or safety, but James, thank you very much for the super chat. We appreciate it. And then we got another one from a weekly visitor. Thank you very much. Sad my Eagles are out of it, but I hope the Bears can make a run. Glad we get more Bear era. We too are very glad that there is more Bear era to make and that it is under happy circumstances. And hey, if you're looking for gifts, the Eagles fired Kevin Patullo while we were talking about it. If you saw Brett's tweet today, we were literally talking about it. He has his other monitor up during recording and he was like, they did it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, 3 minutes ago, they did it literally while we were recording our section about the Eagles saying something's got to change on offense. And they fired Kevin Patullo. So you've at least got that going for you. But Paul, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming back every week, supporting the show. We love having you here. And look, the Eagles aren't a destitute franchise. They have a ton of talent and can turn around very, very quickly if they get some solid coaching on the offensive side, because Vic and the defense are very dialed and have been playing lights out. Quinyon Mitchell, by the way, can we talk about playoff Quinyon Mitchell versus regular season Quinyon Mitchell, who is great, a lockdown corner in the regular season, but just doesn't make interceptions. And then he has 3 interceptions. They're all in the postseason. He had 2 in one game. Talking about guys that turn it on when the lights are the brightest. That's your boy right there, Quinyon Mitchell. So thanks very much for the super chats. We've got some other questions. What do we got? Can Caleb Downs end up having a Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton slide?
I hope so.
I doubt it.
It won't happen.
We're talking about Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, who is one of, if not maybe the best overall player in this draft. We're talking about a top 10 talent without a question, top 5 talent, most likely. Is he going to have a slide because of the position he plays? A little bit.
Yes.
To that, no, I don't think he's getting to the end of the first round. If he does, the Bears would be silly not to take him because they have a need at that spot, and he is a consensus top player in this draft in terms of both production and traits. I'm not going to say never. It is a very long process. We know that funny things happen on the way to the forum, especially in the NFL draft. Would I consider it likely? No, I wouldn't consider it likely. This is a guy probably going top half of the first round.
Yeah, I think he'll slide, but he'll slide to like the mid-teens. That's where I think the point where GMs would be like, he's too good to pass up, and I think that's more likely to happen because look, we always know what happens with top 10 offensive tackles get pushed up if there's a wide receiver, or I know it might change a little bit with Dante Moore kind of going back to Oregon, and who everybody thought was going to be the number 2 overall pick, then will someone have to push up somebody else? Potentially. Again, you'll see edge rushers go a bit earlier if there's a little bit of a run on like offensive tackles. We saw it last year where there was, if the Bears wanted an offensive tackle, they weren't getting one in the first round. You'll probably see Sadiq go from Oregon, the tight end. He'd probably be your top 10 to 12, especially with what you've seen with Loveland and Tyler Warren this year. That might push him up a little bit. So yeah, I could see him falling back to like outside of where his talent is. Like you said, his talent's top 10 pick. I could see him going. I can't remember who's in the kind of 13 to 17 range, but I think that's probably as far as he's going to slide down.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a question here. There's a couple of questions. One is, if we, the Bears, play the Texans in the Super Bowl, what does Brett do? Brett and I actually talked about this week as we were looking at potential matchups and pairings and talking about defenses. He's going to have a good day. He's going to be really thrilled. He wants the Texans to win the Super Bowl without a question, and that defense is very, very good. I have a potential conflict if the Bears make the Super Bowl and they play the Bills. My entire dad's side of the family, born and raised in Buffalo. All my cousins, aunts, uncles, my godparents all live in Buffalo. So I've followed and been part of the Bills fandom for a long time. They are not my favorite team. I would still want the Bears to win that Super Bowl, but I understand, oh boy, the generational angst and the regional sort of pull towards this has to happen. And I would not be sad if the Bills won a Super Bowl, even if it was against the Bears. I would want the Bears to win that game. But it would be a nice consolation prize for all the Bills fans, generations of them, to have that payoff. It would be tremendous. So, there are these things every year, especially for those of us that cover the league and make friends with people in our teams. I had a really good weekend. I was texting with people who were in the press box at Jacksonville. I was, talking to my buddy who's a Panthers reporter. I'm on his show every once in a while, doing radio, and he was there, getting to see that resurgence and the absolute chaos in Charlotte. That was super fun. And to Eric Bono's question, if the Bears end up playing the Seahawks, so if the Seahawks beat the 49ers, which I think is likely, if the Bears beat the Rams, we'll talk about that in a minute, I think is possible for sure for multiple reasons that we've already talked about. One of my buddies who's a Seahawks fan and a content creator, Brandon Schultz, who runs the Seahawkers podcast, shout out to Brandon, and his crew, has 2 tickets. And he said, it might be the last day we're friends, but I got 2 tickets if they make that game. He has great seats. Brandon and I will not stop being friends. He is a great dude. It would be fun, and I will absolutely go to that game. I typically don't go to live games if I don't really have to, because there's so much work for me to do on a Sunday that I have to do a tremendous amount of makeup, because you can't really follow 7 or 8 games while you're at a stadium. There's only one game that day if they make that game. So I'm not missing anything. I will be there with bells on, despite the weather probably being pretty crappy. And I would favor Seattle in that game. No bones about it. Their defense is tremendous. But again, just like I said at the top of the show, I am done betting against these Bears to have a possibility to win, because we have seen them stacked up several times where it looked completely impossible. In fact, odds said nobody's ever done it from this particular spot, and they've done it multiple times in one season. I'm kind of over saying like, it's kind of like betting against the Bills to win the AFC, right? The one year that I was like, nope, that's it. I'm not picking the Dolphins as a wild card. I'm just picking the Bills, and the Patriots won it. So just shows you, even those of us that do it full time aren't infallible at this.
Yeah, I have a few like individual conflict of interest. Not so much conflict of interest, but one is would be a little bit of animosity in my household if the Bears and Patriots would play, because my wife is a Patriots fan.
Oh, there you are.
So
my father-in-law too.
Yeah, to a point of, I vividly remember the Patriots playing against the Chiefs in a AFC championship game, and falling asleep and being woken up at 4 a.m. to tell me that they had won. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going back to sleep.
Oh.
And then
not a moment of household tranquility.
No, and then the other one is, I always put like a sneaky bet at the start of the year on like not your like obviously not the favorite for the Super Bowl, and the one I put on in the AFC was the Bills, and in the NFC was Seahawks. So if either of those were to happen and the Bears didn't ultimately make it, I'd be like, it sucks, but there's still a chance for some good to come out of it.
That's right. Good call. No, the Seahawks team, we will talk about a little bit ahead of it, but in terms of what the Bears need to do to beat the Rams, and many of you were saying it in the chat, and many of us were screaming it during the first half of the game last week. They cannot start slow. Like, I know that Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur are buddies. I know they hang out in Mexico together and have drinks in the offseason. If you spot Sean McVay 21 points, you're losing the football game, regardless. Like, he's not going to give it up like LaFleur did. He is a better coach than that, quite frankly. And I have a lot of respect for Matt LaFleur. He is a good football coach, but his second half collapses are pretty well documented. Now, have there been a ton of them? No, Packers fans are spoiled. They're pointing at a very few instances. Again, we said it earlier on this podcast, like, he's lost 13 home games at Lambeau total in his entire career as Packers head coach. This is a very good head coach. McVay is better. And if you spot him 21, if you go up, they go up 21-0 on the road in Chicago, weather be damned, you're not probably getting it back. So you can't do that. You've got to adjust more quickly. The defense has to adjust more quickly if that starts to happen. If it's 7-0 or 10-0 and you look like you did in the first half against Green Bay, Dennis Allen has to make all the pivots he made at halftime. And I want to give Dennis Allen credit, because if he doesn't make those pivots, we have a different show this week. We're talking about how the Bears lost to the Packers. Plain and simple. Like, despite all the heroics from Caleb and Colston and Ben with some sicko calls on the goal line for a must-have 2-point conversion, like, all that stuff would have been for naught if Dennis Allen had just kind of held the line and said, well, we just need to play better. He didn't. He came out schematically and went, nope, we're going after him. And strangely enough, it started working. It worked. It really, really worked, to the point where I think Mina put out the stat that there was one Green Bay Packers run in the second half that went for more than 1 yard. Think about that. Like, they have Josh Jacobs.
0.3 yards per carry.
They have Josh Jacobs and a pretty good offensive line. I realize their offensive line was banged up and that they lost Sean Ryan in this game, but like, not more than one run went for more than 1 yard. That is lights out defensively, and Dennis Allen deserves his flowers. We've certainly heaped criticism on him. He deserves praise for that, because if he didn't do that, we're not having this conversation. So, but he can't wait this weekend. He can't go down 15, 20, 18 points. Like, that's not what's going to benefit the Bears against the Rams. A comeback would be very much more difficult against that team. So they have to start faster. The offense has to start faster too. Again, they were big game hunting. Caleb was chucking it down the field. His ADOT was way up there. He was not throwing balls behind the line of scrimmage. They were going for it, for the jugular. And I understand that in a playoff game, but there is some modicum of restraint, right? You cannot. Our buddy Cody Alexander put out a great video, by the way. Shout out to Cody at Match Quarters. Go check it out. I retweeted it or re-blueskyed it, skeeted it, whatever you want to call it. Definite must watch Cody's video this week on the Bears and that shift and what those schematic changes were. But you can't wait, right? That's just not going to happen. So the offense, and he had a line in that video that was, if you're the one throwing haymakers in the playoffs, you're the one that's going to get knocked out, right? You can't just keep going for the big ball, especially when it's snowy and cold. Lean on the run game. Lean on, and I'm going to say it, many people that watch this podcast will be surprised, you need to focus this game plan on DeAndre Swift. Like, DeAndre Swift has improved throughout the season. We've given him his credit for doing that. He is playing at a very high level right now. And some of the mismatches in space, we've always said DeAndre Swift was very good in space. In space against the linebackers, if you get DeAndre Swift 1-on-1 versus Nate Landman, and Ben can do it, because Ben got Colston isolated on a linebacker on the goal line through formation and personnel. He can get Swift isolated on Landman. And if he does, you're going to make hay in that particular matchup. That is a win for the Bears. So focus on Swift in the run. He's running it much, much better. He's always been a threat in the passing game. sprinkle in Monangai for extra carries and those hard carries that you're going to need. He's used to it. He played at Rutgers. He's played in the cold. He is a tough dude. He ground out yards against the Packers. Like, you have the tools without going big game hunting, without huge shots down the field to really push this Rams team and keep the ball out of Stafford's hands. If you're playing ball control, if you're running the football, you're keeping it on the ground. Caleb's making a few plays in the first half, but doesn't have to cape up and be Superman and take big shots down the field. You're going to control time of possession. The scores are going to be closer as you move to the second half. And look, folks, if this is a less than a 5-point game going into the fourth quarter, you know who I'm picking. Like, there is no way I'm picking against the Bears if that's the lineup. If you deliver this team to that threshold and say, go get them, release the hounds, they're going to get it done. They've got it done all season long with everything on the line at home. I cannot believe that they would not be able to do that in the final minutes. But if you spot them a couple of touchdowns and you got to chase in the fourth quarter in those conditions, they're working against you too. So again, Caleb's got a great arm. He can cut it through the wind, but I don't want him put in that position. Still not going to bet against him if he's there because he's overcome more before this season, but that both sides of this ball have to start faster and focus it on the run game, specifically through Swift. I think you can hold it close for all the reasons we've talked about. And if it's close, I think this is the Bears ball game.
Yeah, I think the key here is very similar to what we saw against Philadelphia. Is you need to come out of this game running the football where you're dominating at the line of scrimmage, and ultimately you mentioned it to a certain point in terms of keeping Matt Stafford off the field, but the reality is Stafford did injure his finger in the last game, and look, he's going to play, he's going to practice, all that sort of stuff, but that doesn't just magically heal. It's still going to be bothering him, and ultimately in the cold it's going to feel a hell of a lot worse. I'd rather have Matt Stafford be cold on the sideline and let the Bears offense take minutes off the clock every single time they get the ball.
Yep.
And that's what you need to do. And early on in the game, you just need to tick the scoreboard over, keep the Rams off. Look, the Rams offense are going to score. Like, they're good. They're really good.
Yeah.
And the name of the game needs to be, you need to limit the Rams for the number of possessions they're going to get in this game.
Yes.
That's what you need to do. If you can limit the Rams' possessions on offense, and maybe Stafford isn't as effective because there is something. Because look, the reality is Stafford started off the game against Carolina like unbelievable. Then he hurts his finger and then looks off for about 2-ish quarters until the last drive when he really had to dig through. Now, if he's in pain and you have a similar story to where that performance for the 2 quarters, you see that in Chicago in the cold, you have a chance because he wasn't accurate when that was going on, and that's where you have a chance for him to make a mistake and you to capitalize on it. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that he's doing that while he's cold, because if he's getting out there every couple of minutes, he's just going to get in a rhythm. So that's what the Bears need to be able to do. There was a question where it says, will the offense finally play a complete game and control time and possession and play with the lead, or will Caleb need another Superman comeback? They're probably going to need both. Like, they're probably going to have to control the game, and then ultimately, I still believe if you do control this game, it's going to come down to who has the ball last. And like you said, if Caleb has the ball in his hands with a minute to go and an opportunity to win the game, I know who I'm betting on. Like, that's when you've done it 7 times, like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're going to do it again. The other part of the same guy had a question that I think it's good for us to go through here, because we talk about the defense. Is our defensive inconsistency a product of our players or DA's coaching or scheme? And again, it's both. It goes back to the draft question that James asked us earlier, and why we were talking about kind of athletic players. The athletic floor needs to rise on the defense. It's not to the level of the defense that Dennis Allen wants to be, but also Dennis Allen needs to, now, as we said, you give him credit in the second half, he did change it up. he needs to be less rigid on what he wants to do if something's not working. Now, he made a couple of adjustments in terms of what they were doing schematically, like you said, but also some of the players that were in there. Obviously, DeMarco Jackson was one that was like an obvious one, but you saw, even though he was hurt, you saw more Kyler Gordon, you saw Jalen out there a little bit more. You then saw Mabin, who was out there where, again, he had not played many snaps, but athletic enough to make a difference. I think DeMarco Jackson was the biggest difference maker. In the second half, you saw a noticeable difference at the linebacker position. Did they give up plays? Yes. But he was more dangerous than TJ because, unfortunately for TJ, I think the injuries this year have really caught up to him. And he just doesn't look as explosive as the guy that you brought in here a couple of years back, the Super Bowl winner with the Eagles. And that's why we've been talking about it all year. And to the point, Tremaine's been similar enough. I think he's lost a bit of a step as well. And I think Dennis Allen, if you asked him or if you put like truth serum for him, he wants athletic linebackers to be able to run the system. So it's going to be interesting what they do. So it is kind of both, but I think in the game against the Rams, like, it's going to come down to how they're going to line up schematically, because Kyler's not going to be healthy, Jalen's not going to be healthy, and you just got to do enough. You just got to, if you can start with limiting the running game where they're going to have to throw it in the elements, they may score a bunch of points, but they may make the critical mistake that could mean you win this football game. And that's what the Bears are going to be banking on. This is one of those games where the Bears have to be good. And if they are, they have more than a puncher's chance to make it to the NFC Championship game, because they have things that matter in the playoffs. They can take the ball away. Like, the reality is they should have had 3 takeaways against the Green Bay Packers and they had none. So they need to swarm to the football. When the ball gets loose, Javon Dexter, please just fall on it. Kevin Byard,
I knew that was coming. When that happened during the game, I knew we'd be talking about it right now. I was like, this is going to come up.
Just fall on the ball. Like,
yep.
Kevin Byard, when the ball is laying there in front of you, please just go and get it. Don't let somebody else go get it. But that's it. Even with everything against Green Bay, like, it seems like every 50-50 thing that was happening was going against the Bears up until the fourth quarter, and they were still going for it. Like, they were still trying to punch the ball out, and that's why in the cold, it will happen. Guys will lose the football, and that's where I would be surprised if the Bears don't have an opportunity to take the ball away, whether it be a fumble or whether it be an interception because a throw gets caught in the wind or something like that. But the Bears just need to be in position to pounce on it, and the offense just needs to be efficient. They don't need to, this might not be a game where you're going to have to score 35, 36 points. Like, this is just a game that you need to be efficient with your possessions, that every time you get the ball, you take time off the clock and you finish most of your possessions with a score. That's what they were able to do for the most part against the Eagles. Even in the possessions where they didn't score, they took like 5 and 6 minutes off the clock. Yep. And Jalen Hurts didn't get to see the field that often. That's what you need to do against the Rams. And if you can do that, and if you can have your running game going early, like, if you see the Bears are able to run the ball in the first half, I would feel very good about the Bears' chances of winning the football game. Yep. If they're struggling in the rushing attack in the first half and the Rams have a kind of a sizable lead going into halftime, I'd be very concerned just based on everything that we've spoken about. But again, this is just a team. Like, so many people over time, and like I felt the same way. Like, the first half, nothing seemed to be working offensively, defensively, and it just looked like this was just going to peter out. But then again, Caleb, this is a team that if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And if the Rams do that, the Bears will not do what the Carolina Panthers did in terms of get just close enough to lose. this is a team that if you give them an opportunity in the fourth quarter, they're going to take it and they're going to win the football game. And that's a great position to be in, because we just again, I said this last week, go back a year. This is not a game that this team would even be spoken about to be competitive in.
Yeah.
And now this is a team that, if they play to the way they can play, they can win this and they can get to the championship game. And this is a game I think I'm going to go into not feeling nervous, because this is the first time I actually think they kind of are playing with house money, where everyone's expecting the Rams to win. But this team there's something about them that you can't quite put your finger on it, but they just get the job done. Anytime, like, we all thought that they were going to lose to the Eagles fairly handedly when they came in, because the Eagles were a better team than the Bears. And you knew very quickly in that game that, this is different. This Bears team is bullying the Eagles, and that's a good Eagles team. And you could definitely see it happen. But I think the first half is going to tell you a lot about how this game is going to go.
I don't disagree. And this team is believing in itself. And you see some teams that act like they believe in themselves, but they don't. They're the ones that, again, get close, play just well enough to lose, make statements, but don't pick up W's. This team is the other. They've been picking up W's since before anybody believed outside of them. And they're like, hey, I'm glad you caught up, but we've been here the whole time. And this is old hat for them. They understand where they are. They understand what they can do. And they're just not nervous. The rest of us are really nervous. You're down 21 points and the offense is sputtering. The defense looks helpless. And we're more than nervous. They're like, we got this. And they do time and again. Again, they don't do it the way we want them to do it, but they do the damn thing. And that is the bottom line. 3 things. One, I want to, thoughts out to DJ Edwards. The guy's played his ass off for this team. Yeah. He's a local guy. It was an ugly injury. He's a class act. I want to see him come back and play well. I don't know if he will or not, but regardless, just want to send thoughts out to TJ. Biggest player change for me in the second half, you said it was DeMarco Jackson. I really think it was Jalen Johnson, because Jalen Johnson looked like he was running with snow boots in the first half. Yeah. He got burned repeatedly. Like, it was bad. I was texting people like, okay, he's not healthy. He can't be. He was never fast. He was never a burner, but he was getting every single crossing route, which, again, he used to make up for with technique. He's never been a super fast guy, but he had decent speed. He was well below that in the first half, and I thought, well, this is over. There's no way he can't run with the guys that are running away from him. Second half, boy, he dialed it up. I don't know if he had his orange slices or what, or just remembered, or kind of just got back in the groove of the football game, but he played great football in the second half. He looked like old Jalen Johnson, and I don't mean too old to play. I mean greater glories, greater Jalen Johnson. And that was a huge difference. He made several big-time plays in the second half. Again, Dennis Allen let him play more off-man. And he is a great off-man corner. That is his preferred stance and coverage. And he paid it off. He basically said, you let me do this and I'll deliver. Look, Dennis Allen didn't have any choice. If he continued to do what he did in the first half, he would have kept getting what he was getting, which would have been an ass beating and a quick exit from the playoffs. So he let him do it. And Jalen, to his word, came through and played like a completely different player in the second half. Had he not, among many other things, this would have been over. So, and there was one question in here that I wanted to get to as we head our way out of here from Eglich. One thing I noticed versus the Rams is the outside runs kind of work against them. You are not wrong, Eglich. Your eye test is working. The analytics say the same thing. I was digging through for another piece I did this week, and outside zone is not the Rams' strongest defensive stance. They get got by outside zone. Not to a league-leading level. It's not some super hidden key, but they're not particularly effective against outside zone runs. And Ben Johnson loves him some outside zone. If you're talking about Swift, much rather have him running outside zone. And he's been doing it very, very well for 3 or 4 weeks now. Even more than that at this point, about 5 weeks. So you're not wrong, Eglich. Your eyes are not deceiving you. Outside zone works pretty well against the Rams. And I would expect a heavy diet of it from Ben Johnson, from multiple formations, from multiple pre-snap looks, but those runs are going to end up going to the same place. And I think the Bears are going to pay those off whether or not. So very good catch by you. Other than that, I would just give you some, not caution, because I'm not going to tell anybody how to fan. Enjoy this however you want to. You could be superstitious. You could be nervous. You could, you could hide your head in the sand and check the score later. I don't care how you need to get through it, but this is a run. It's not the only run. It's not the run to end all runs, but this is the run in front of us. And the Bears are making good on every chance they get so far. So until they stop doing that, which, I predict they probably will, enjoy every bit of it. If this is the last week, man, we've had a blast. This has been a really good ride. This is a fun team to cover again. And it has not been for a long time. So find a way to enjoy this, whether it's with friends or by yourself, however you need to do it the way you want to do it. But do not discount that this is a run and this team's a lot of fun. It doesn't matter if it ends here, because next year projects, if you look at basically every indicator, to be much better. Listen to what Jared Goff said about between year 1 and year 2 in Detroit. He said it was a whole different world. Amon-Ra said the same thing. Like, Ben Johnson's offense in year 2 matures in ways that are very, very tangible on the field. So I'm not saying get used to this, because it takes a lot of luck to get to the playoffs in the NFL. It is a very difficult thing to do, and it's even harder to do to get back. But enjoy this run, because it is a run. They are on a run at this point. They are in the playoffs and they won a game. They beat their bitter rival, and now they have a chance to win against one of the most tenured playoff teams in the NFC. Just enjoy it. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Take this for what it is, because it's rare and it's fun. And man, we haven't had this for a while, and it feels really, really good.
Yeah, like, I second those sentiments. That I know we've said it so many different times. Is like, the context of this season is just, it's unbelievable, because you go into it with so low expectations, looking for improvements. You knew pretty quickly that this was a bit different this year. That you knew very early on that you got the coaching hire right.
Yep.
That the culture, like we said at the start of the year, the hardest thing that was going to be was to shift the losing culture from an organization that has been used to losing for so long to one that you just have to listen to guys talking around the NFL. Like, if you think there's not going to be players that are going to hit free agency that are going to want to come to Chicago, you're out of your goddamn mind. It's different for like wave one. Wave one guys, they go where the money takes them. There's going to be veterans that could be in like their early to mid 30s, or it could be somebody that is going to get paid lower and they just need a better fit. When you have a young, exciting team that everybody's looking at right now that just looks a whole lot of fun to be a part of, like, you're going to see people or players want to come here. And it's a very small aspect of it, but even like after the draft, for like UDFA's agents know that like you treat their players good and you give players an opportunity, like Ja'Day Walker getting to play this year. If you prove that you're good enough, you'll get a roster spot. Like, these are things that are important. And again, like you said, just enjoy it, because there's no guarantees that the Bears are going to make the playoffs next year. Like, just look at the Commanders. Like, you could just have it where, God forbid, next year an important player gets hurt, and it's the difference between you winning 3 or 4 games and losing them, and in the division that the Bears are in, that is the difference. If it would be different if you were playing in the NFC South, you'd be like, Grant, it's fine. You're good. You're good. You just need a winning season and you're going to make the playoffs. Yeah, that's not the case in the NFC North. I feel bad for the Arizona Cardinals because their whole division is still in the playoffs.
Yeah, killers.
So as good as we think that the NFC North is, it could be worse. You could be in that division. But at the end of the day, like, I understand, like, I was the same, people being nervous last week, because again, it's a rivalry. this week it's like not many people expected us to be here. So now it's just like, just get into the game, enjoy it. Obviously, when it comes to the end of the game, if the Bears are still with an opportunity to win, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be walking around the house not wanting to watch the TV and just like hope to God they make a good play, because that's where I was for the final play when Jordan Love had the ball. I'm pretty sure I had my hoodie over my head, didn't want to listen, and it was tough. But I think it's really important for us as fans to like soak this up and enjoy it, because the first time is always better than kind of when you do it for, because like next year the expectation will be playoffs. So like it's completely different. I know people in Chicago compare it to like the Chicago Cubs, where I remember vividly the 2015 playoffs where they weren't expected to do anything and they beat the St. Louis Cardinals and then they lose to the Mets. But like so many people enjoyed those playoffs so much because they weren't expected to be there. And the following season they improved and they got to the World Series and won. And that's what you hope this Bears team does. And the one thing I will say is I have confidence in Ben Johnson. I'm starting to get a little bit more confidence in the front office to where they're going to see just how close that they can get with a suboptimal defense. So what happens if they do become aggressive in trying to fix some of the issues that have really ailed this team? If they do that, you put yourself in a genuine Super Bowl window. And as Bears fans, we have not been able to say that for a very, very, very long time. So this is a part of being a Bears fan that you should enjoy. This is the rise. We've been waiting for the rise for a long time.
Yeah.
So enjoy it. It is here. The Bears still have an opportunity to get to another week. Like I said last week, I don't want to have one more Bear Era podcast about the 2025 season. I want 4 more. That's what I want. So 4 more. I know there's the bye week and stuff, but that'll be like previewing Super Bowl stuff, and 4 more. That's it. Like you get to, if we can do 4 more episodes of the 2025 season, it means something crazy has occurred.
Yeah.
But even if we can get to one more week, that's all we ask for. Take 1 week at a time, and if they do that, this season has already been remarkable. But it'd be spectacular to be put into that class of you're the final 2 in the NFC. Like that would be really, really cool. And then look, then it's really a one-off game from that point. You're just like, you're 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And that's where people can start believing. I think we're still a little bit far out because it's the Rams and then you're either the 49ers or Seattle. But if you get past the Rams, you know that you have a real chance to make the big game, which just didn't seem realistic at the start of the season. So enjoy it now that we're here. If we win, fantastic. If we lose, still, it's nothing to be upset about, because this team has made us as Bears fans very, very proud this year, and we just need to soak it in as much as we can.
Yep. We're happy to still be here. We are thrilled that all of you are here along with us every single week, supporting us, sending in comments, reacting to posts on social media, sending in super chats. We feel the support, and we really enjoy it. Like, we enjoy doing this. We enjoyed doing it when it was not so fun. This is a passion of ours, but having everybody along for the ride contributing is making it even more special for us. So we're enjoying that as well. Thank you very much for that. And we will see you next week, one way or another. Until then, enjoy the game.